Hi there, it's Michael Khan here for No Picket Fence, and today I'm chatting to Andy Hadfield. How are you, Andy?
Hey Michael, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. A bit cold this morning. Winter's hit us, which is a bit
Six
irritating.
degrees, man.
Yeah, so I've got the heater on here. So, so yeah, man. But listen, thanks for taking the time out, and I was really excited to start with you on this new series we're starting for No Picket Fence because getting online is not actually a negotiation these days. You have to do it, and I just wanted to have a chat to you about the big picture and why small businesses and certainly entrepreneurs need to be looking at getting online and actually using online a lot more effectively. But to introduce yourself, just to give some context and some credibility, apart from being
Credibility.
so-
First thing about credibility is that if you're giving it to yourself, no one believes you.
no, that's true. So that's why I thought I'd give it to you rather than just assume that you're just a wine drinker and you know.
Yeah, I do like one.
Yeah, you do, because that's one of your key projects, isn't it? The real-time wine.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been around on the internet since BBSs. So since you had to put the pillow over the phone when you were using it late at night because it was making that beep 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 that noise.
Sorry, can I ask you what's a BBS?
Really? Come on, Michael.
Sorry. Yeah, no, sorry.
When we still had modems that had to dial out and you could only connect one computer at a time.
No, that was terrible. Yeah.
And I had email before I had anyone to email.
Okay.
So anyway, look, I've kind of grown up on the internet, and throughout my life, I've really enjoyed building digital products. So that's kind of what I do. I have one or two very niche consulting clients. I do quite a bit of public speaking, but 90% of my focus at the moment is on a startup called Real Time Wine, which is a retail discovery engine for wine.
Oh, fantastic.
Kind of Foursquare for wine is the high concept pitch.
Okay, and it's going well, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, we ran a content pilot for the last year just to see if people were interested in interacting with wine, and specifically the market I'm going for, which is 75% of wine drinkers buy their wine in the supermarket as opposed to from the farm. And it's that kind of middle market that I'm going through, and yeah, they seem to be quite keen on discovering new stuff and sharing what they're drinking. So we'll see. We go live in a couple of weeks.
That's fantastic. Well, it's good for someone like me because I don't know the difference between a Shiraz and whatever they are, cabs or whatever. But I do like the red wine. So yeah. It's great for me. It is. Andy, in terms of entrepreneurs getting themselves online, how essential is this? And really, maybe I should start with where online is going, where digital is going, and what do entrepreneurs need to be looking for? Because it's obviously a good starting spot, but it's a big beast, and I'm not sure that any one of us really understands it very well, and it can be quite overwhelming. So my first question is really, should entrepreneurs really be looking to get online, and where should they be starting?
Okay, so the short answer is yes. Of course, they should be looking to get online because the barrier to entry in the internet is almost zero these days. I mean, you can create a website for free. There are a ton of social publishing platforms that allow you to get out there. And in fact, I'm particularly fascinated with the SME side of things because I think SMEs potentially have a lot more relevance to their niche markets than big companies do. I mean, let's take a big insurance company, for instance. They can remain nameless. Do you know how hard it is for an insurance company to be relevant to every single chunk of their audience because they have so many products? That means they have so many segments of their audience, and you can't be relevant to all of them at the same time. Take a small business. I had the pleasure of meeting a lot of the ladies from Clamber Club, which is it's for kids. They run kids parties and
yes, I know them very well.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
So fascinating business. I mean, they've got 40 franchises, I think, all owned and run by women. Now, Clamber Club, you would never think to compare that to an insurance company, but think about it. Clamber Club is extremely relevant to mothers in Lone Hill.
Yeah, they
extremely relevant. And therefore, that target market is going to seek you out. They're going to engage with you. They will talk about your products. They will be interested. Now take a mother in Lone Hill and try to put them into an insurance company segment. It's so much harder. And I think that's what the internet allows us to do. It allows us to get down to that granular level. And SMEs can take advantage of that, whereas big companies are struggling.
Yeah, just on that, and deviating to the big brands because it's very easy to copy the big brands. Surely the internet gives these big brands an opportunity to segment because you're now able to find your market in a way that's a lot more contextually relevant than just spewing out TV adverts or print magazines and the traditional media. Surely the ability to segment online, if you actually look at what you're doing and focusing on your customer first, rather than your brand first and just assuming that everyone loves you and gets out of bed in the morning wanting to talk about you. Surely there's a great opportunity here in terms of segmenting and modeling that.
There is. And I think what the big brands are starting to do is that they're using the targeting capabilities of the internet. So, the best example of understanding the targeting is whether it's for you or not is Facebook advertising. I encourage everyone, whether they decide to place an ad with Facebook or not, to go and use Facebook's ad profiling tool. So if you look at the profile and you see the ads on the right, there's a little link above there that says create an ad. And it essentially allows you to play around with the demographics and psychographics of any Facebook user, all 800 million of them. And it is frightening at who you can target. I mean, they already have 100,000 SMEs. So you target 100,000 SMEs in South Africa. But more than that, you can target people that like cricket. You can target people that like rugby. They even have, it gets a little scary, but they have a category of about 4,800 expecting parents.
Okay. And I'd hate to be in that conversation. I just remember when we first had a child. Yes.
Think about that. Get that kind of data. I mean, they're getting it because of our social interactions. No one signs up to Facebook and puts themselves in a I'm pregnant category.
No.
So they know so much about the audience. And that ad tool allows you to pull out pieces of it. So yes, segmentation is amazing on the internet.
Yeah.
Whether the big companies are doing it properly or not, I don't really know. And that's why I think it's an SME opportunity now, whereas the big companies take a while. Again, take our mystery insurance company. Go to their Facebook page. They speak to everyone the same.
Yes, absolutely.
A car insurance person will have a very different profile to a funeral insurance person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I don't think the big companies are doing it. And I think it's easier for SMEs to do it. And they need to hop on that bandwagon quickly.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. But in terms of that bandwagon, how mature is our industry in South Africa? Because certainly when you look at what's going on in the States, I see the Digital Edge have just closed down their podcast series. And I think it's because of bandwidth issues and traction, certainly listening to the last one. And I'll be chatting to Saul next week about it. But how mature is our market and how far can we push it online? Because we're certainly not nearly as far as the Americans and the Europeans. And I'm not sure if that's a good benchmark or not.
So, I mean, a couple of points. I think a lot of people think we're behind in Africa in terms of the way we utilize these channels. And I tend to disagree. If you have a look at the top 5 mobile sites, in South Africa and the top 5 mobile sites in the US, aside from Mixit, which is localized, the American equivalent of Mixit in that ranking scale would be something like Yahoo. But aside from that, they are exactly the same, the top 5 mobile sites. We are using the same sites that the US are using. So I think our behavior is very similar. If you split it into, let's say, research, buy, engage as 3 potential behavior points on digital channels, I think we are researching and I think we are engaging. I don't think we are mass market buying yet. But that all depends on the platform. Go chat to the bank about how much prepaid airtime is being bought via USSD channels. USSD is digital.
Absolutely.
They're moving hundreds of millions of rands of airtime through that digital channel. But I think the important thing, especially if you're taking this from an SME point of view, is that customers, all 8.5, I think Arthur Goldstuck recently released his new number of 8.5 million active internet users in the country. So it's heading towards 20%. They are researching.
Yeah.
All researching. I was out in a rural township about 8 months ago, and we were hooking people's phones up so that they could get onto the internet. Yeah. And the first thing they did, we're in the middle of KwaZulu-Natal. You had to climb to the top of the hill by the carrot patch just to get sick. And the first thing these people who lived in that township did was went on Google. They started Googling careers. They started Googling brands. So South Africans are researching, which means if they can't find you and they can't find the information they want, it is highly unlikely that any kind of offline purchasing is going to happen.
Absolutely. And certainly just on Google, when you look at the keywords, they're not very competitive at the moment in terms of buying keywords on Google, in terms of your campaigns on Google AdWords.
Who's not competitive?
South Africa. It's not as mature in terms of the American market.
I don't know. Google don't release their AdWords revenue.
No, they don't. But I'm talking about the bid prices and the competitiveness around those bid prices.
Let's go back to a nameless insurance company. I happen to have some experience in insurance banking. But take any of them, insurance or banking, and for some of them, life insurance, for instance, that keyword, you're paying upwards of 500 Rand a click.
You are. No, absolutely. That's highly competitive. I'm thinking more of the SME markets. Coming back to your point, niche targeting and segmentation, and the reason why you need to get online here. I absolutely agree. I mean, the insurance markets are extremely competitive in South Africa. They really are, and they're spending the most on the AdWords at the moment, certainly.
I mean, some companies have spent upwards of 2-3 million Rand a month on AdWords, some of the big companies. And that's actually a barrier for SMEs. But, what I'm more interested in is SMEs that aren't playing in the insurance game. It's really hard. I mean, no SME is going to play in the banking game, and no SME is going to play in the insurance game. So you can attack a more long-tail type of strategy. You can look
absolutely
for each keywords. And localization, localization is the big buzzword with all these top digital companies in the States. So Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, Tumblr, all of them are talking about how to localize, because localizing makes it more relevant. So don't compete on, what is it? Let's use Clamber Club again. Don't compete on the keyword creche. Compete on what to do with my children plus Lone Hill.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's more of an SME strategy.
Yeah. Andy, in terms of this then, going forward for SMEs, what are the key trends that they need to be looking forward, certainly for the rest of 2012 and going into 2013? Because, I mean, the key buzzword at the beginning of the year is you've got to get into multimedia, et cetera, et cetera. What are your thoughts on where the trends are going for SMEs, and what should they be looking for?
Well, the one that's kind of occupying me most at the moment is the result of the buzzword being multimedia. So what happens is that everyone thinks, crap, I've got to be on the internet. So they get a website, then they get a Facebook page, then they get a Twitter account. Then they have no idea what to do with all this. They push all this fluffy content down these channels.
Buy me.
Well, not only that. I mean, okay, rule number one as an SME, do not spam people on LinkedIn. It is one of the most irritating trends I have ever seen.
No, I agree. I'm about to delete my account.
I accept any request on LinkedIn, and what's happening more and more is I'll accept a request, and the next thing I'll get, please, we'd really like to be your print paper supplier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it's terrible. That's not relevant, guys. That's spam. But sorry, getting back to the effect of everyone wanting to be on multimedia is that we end up with either all this hard sell or all this really fluffy, silly content. What's everyone feeling like today? Here's a funny picture. And that's okay if one brand was doing it, but all the big brands are doing it, and 1,000 SMEs are doing it at the same time. So the trend I'd like people to focus on is not about being everywhere all the time and pushing as much content down the pipe, but building utility. Because the internet is one hell of a noisy place at the moment. And unless you build utility, unless you build value, a reason for someone to come back to your digital presence other than to look for your phone number. That's kind of my overriding thing for small to medium enterprises. What is the reason they're going to go to that digital property aside from getting your phone number or looking at a product? And if you can build that, you can cut through the clutter. Don't waste your time shoving content down the pipe, because I can guarantee you there are 1,000 people in the US and 1,000 people in China shoving the same content down, and it's probably better than yours and it's more up to date. I wouldn't even try and compete on that. I'd compete on utility and relevance for a very, very particular target market.
Okay, so it actually comes back to really understanding your marketing strategy offline, your brand propositions and positionings, and understanding your customer market.
Yeah. I mean, who are you? What do you do? And why are you different?
Yeah,
If your digital properties don't answer that question, then expect to be pulled into the noise of everyone else.
yeah,
There's,
absolutely.
you've got to stick out somehow. The
Okay,
internet is too noisy to just build it and they will come.
yeah.
That doesn't work.
Okay, so we could say the trend is common sense then, just clear thinking.
It's always been common sense. I mean,
It is.
and I think the more things change, the more they stay the same. Gary Vaynerchuk, who's
Yes.
one of my kind of trend idols. He really does call these things quite well. He has this whole theory about mom and pop businesses coming back. The
Yeah,
same kind of mom and pop shops that were famous in the 50s, where everyone knew your name and your handshake was the way you introduced your
yeah.
product to people. That's coming back because digital channels are allowing us to get so much closer to brands than ever before.
Yes.
Now, the big companies, they're going to battle to do that purely because of volume. For the SMEs, that is something that they can actually achieve. They can actually achieve that same warm, fuzzy feeling that mom and pop shops used to give in the 50s.
Yeah.
And that's not a massive change. The platforms are changing. Common sense isn't.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that warmth should be more instinctive for these SMEs, because I mean these large brands just don't have a soul. They just really are hard, cold, and yeah, disgusting at the
They're a
best.
victim of process. Without process, you cannot run a big organization.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, process, you can see when you're having a conversation on social channels, for instance, with a big brand because of the way they answer.
Yeah,
They have a
absolutely.
process flow that they run through.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
SMEs can completely cut into that market by just being more human.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. In terms of the challenges for SMEs, then, it's easy to say we've got a lot of opportunities. What do you think the biggest challenges are? Because this really is a big beast, and if you're coming in fresh and you don't understand it, there are a lot of pitfalls and a lot of challenges. What do you think some of those challenges are?
Um, Look, I think we've been saying that SMEs should get onto the internet because it's one of the easiest ways to differentiate. But with the internet comes the unfortunate problem that customers have much higher expectations than normal. And you can see this when we've moved out of having to deal with call centers to now dealing with companies on self-service platforms or lead forms or social channels. We expect a much, much quicker response. People are willing to put up with a lot from a call center. A lot. They are not willing to put up with that on a digital channel. I mean, just phone TV, for example, and go through their IVR. It's possibly the worst experience known to man. And yet we put up with it because it's really the only way we can get that done. Now talk to DSTV on a social channel and you have a much, much higher expectation of service. So understanding that expectation is an issue. And then I'd say the second challenge is it's knowing what to focus on. I was having a little bitch on Twitter the other day that I just don't have time to keep all these social thingies going. Count it. You've got Facebook, LinkedIn, Google Plus, Pinterest, Tumblr, Instagram, Foursquare, and that would be all I do all day. So I'm having to focus, and I think SMEs are going to have the same problem. You don't have to be on every channel.
Yes.
And you don't only have to be on the big channels. You can choose a channel which is relevant to your business. If video makes sense, do video.
Yeah.
Don't worry about Twitter.
Absolutely.
The half-life of a tweet is something like 30 seconds. Then it's gone. Forever forgotten. So if you don't get people to act in a sum total of 45 seconds, well, then that tweet was worthless. Video lives on for much longer. YouTube is, I think, the 4th or 5th highest mobile site in South Africa.
Yeah.
And it's another stat I like to haul out when people go, oh, but our bandwidth is so expensive and therefore people aren't using digital channels. Rubbish. Otherwise, why would YouTube be the 5th most popular site?
No, absolutely.
Yes, maybe we're paying more than we should. Although, when you compare our 3G bandwidth to the States, it's not that expensive, actually.
Not.
In some cases, it might be cheaper. So I think just picking your battles, knowing where to focus, and then focusing. An SME has to run a business. They've got very little time to keep 52 social media sites updated and their website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Start with a website. Make sure it can be seen and used on mobile devices, because most of the SME websites can't. They break the minute you look at a mobile device. And then pick one engagement channel or one marketing channel for differentiation and focus on that and do that well.
Yeah, and I assume the criteria is, are your customers there? Because if they're not on Twitter, what's the point? You really are wasting your time.
Exactly. Yeah. And get your website and Mobi site in order first, because the overwhelming majority of people are using Google to research before they buy.
Absolutely.
And that's our big difference, is that as our market matures, that research behavior is going to dominate before the buy behavior comes.
No, absolutely.
And people aren't going to research you on Google and find you on Facebook. That's less likely to happen than research you on Google and find your site or your Mobi site.
Absolutely. Sorry, yeah. And Andy, just in terms of where you put your stuff, you talk about a website, and a lot of guys are putting up their stuff, say, on Facebook, or they're now probably using Google Plus as their microblog channels and what have you. What is your thinking about this? Do you think you should be creating your own platform and building your own media asset, or should you be using these platforms like Facebook and really limiting yourself to their terms and conditions, because they can change overnight and you really are subject to their will? And Facebook, I hate it, because every time I go in there it's different. I absolutely detest Facebook because of it. What is your thinking about where to put your heart on the internet?
The thing is, so a good friend and very clever chap said to me the other day, his name's Andy Volk. I think he's an ex-South African, but he used to be in the Valley, and he's just moved here to work on Mixit. He said the thing he noticed about South Africans is we keep trying to solve the big problems first. Keep on trying to build something.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We keep on trying to build something on digital channels that will last for 10 years. We're building websites that we're going to leave to our kids. And by the time we've even got the first version out, the internet has changed. So I think it's something that you have to accept, is that the internet is changing so quickly that you will never keep up. And once you've accepted that, then I think the options start to open up. So running your business entirely on Facebook is an option these days. It costs nothing.
Yeah.
If you're clever about it, there are some interesting things you can do by using those embedded HTML boxes and pages, things like that. They're not as pretty as a website, but you can do things. Figure out how to get a lead form on Facebook, and you've taken the first step. However, if the predominant behavior at the moment, and let's talk for 2012, mid-2013, not any further, because we can't possibly predict.
We can't.
These Facebook properties are not getting returned in search results as much as web and mobile properties. It's much harder to get your Facebook page to rank than it is to get your website with a whole bunch of cool content.
Yeah.
Because Facebook is still, in part, close to a lot of Google's search engine spiders.
Yes, absolutely.
So if you're planning on attacking the discovery behavior, so you're targeting the research behavior, I still think that a site is worth it. And I mean, go look at Vinnie Lingham's project, Yola.com.
Yes.
It's free.
Yeah.
You can sign up, you can write some good copy, you can have a lead form, you can have your SME's contact details. It's free, and it can look okay. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. I think it's pretty amazing that you can run things solely on Facebook, but I don't think it's for every business. And I think you've got to be very careful that if you choose to build something on a social channel only, that you're appearing in search results.
Yeah,
that's how people are going to find you.
Yeah, it's a big monster. It's just where to put your toe into the water and start.
Think about plumbers. Yeah. When you're a plumber, you're going to go to Google and type plumber Cape Town.
Yeah.
You're not going to go to Facebook and type plumber Cape Town.
No, you're not. Absolutely not.
So that's kind of the example that should resonate.
No, absolutely. And Google's revenues are still doing very well off Google AdWords, so it means that people are using it. They really are. And Andy, in terms of the management of all of this and the industry itself, because it's, it's very easy to find someone, but how do you know you're getting someone that's actually worthwhile to use? Because if they may come and say, I'm going to give you, you're going to have to pay me 10 grand to put up a WordPress site, or, you know, you're going to have to pay me 30,000 rand to put up a Google Plus page. In terms of the industry and where to find resources and what have you, and the technical management of this, because a lot of small businesses are so busy trying to run their businesses, they don't have time to do this, and the state of our industry. Have you got any thoughts on where to start looking for these kind of things, and how do you qualify who is good and who isn't good? And I know it's a bit of an open-ended question, and it's a bit of an indictment on the industry as well, but any thoughts on this?
I don't think it's an indictment on the industry. I think it's a sign that digital has gone mainstream. So let's use our friends, the plumbers, again. Yeah. How do you know when you phone a plumber whether he or she is any good?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Yeah, I phone my mates and say, have you got anyone who's good? That's how we work. Yeah.
So it's word of mouth. Yeah. So, you know, as mainstream as plumbing is, digital is becoming that. There are thousands and thousands of suppliers out there. And you probably have to use referral and word of mouth to find people that have had good experiences. It's just like any other industry.
Yeah.
I think the general rule is, and again, I mean, man, let's bring back the 1950s common sense. Pay peanuts, get monkeys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Someone quotes 1,500 rand, or you know, my favorite is not only websites. You know, if someone quotes you 2,000 rand to build a website, chances are you could have done it yourself.
Yeah.
Spent the time. If someone, you know, these guys out there that are charging 500 to 1,000 rand a month or 2,000 rand a month to do your SEO, okay, trust, even if you're billing 300 rand an hour, you're not going to get value out of that.
No.
So you pay peanuts, you get monkeys.
Yeah.
I also think stay away from the well-known digital agencies as an SME. I mean, these guys are starting to operate just in planes that are unheard of. You know, the average corporate website now is 2 to 5 million rand.
Yeah, absolutely.
The website, exclude Mobi, exclude anything else. That's what these guys, you know, that's what these big companies are spending. So go for the small to medium-sized agencies. Use word of mouth. Find people that have had good experiences.
Okay.
And the best tip of all, spec well.
Yes.
Well, the output of any digital project is only as good as the brief you input.
Absolutely.
I don't care if you don't know how to brief. I don't care if you don't know how to spec. You've got to make a plan. You've got to know what you want before you start. Otherwise, it's going to be a mess. And that's what SMEs need to learn, because they don't. They change their minds 100 times through the dev process. They don't know what they want. You should spend twice as much time planning as actually building.
Absolutely.
And until they do that, you're going to hear the horror stories.
Okay. So it comes back to just do your homework and use common sense again. Absolutely. Yeah. Andy, thank you so much. Have you got any closing thoughts for us, or any other insights you'd like to share, or of where we are and what the opportunities are, challenges, or any final thoughts on this?
No, I mean, look, I think it's such an exciting time to be in business. And it's all about, you know, if this seems like a big monster and it seems scary, just think of the barrier to entry argument. Yeah. Your barrier to entry to get out there is zero.
Yes.
Anyone can do it. Now, while the negative side of that means everyone does, and there's a lot of noise, it means that it is easier to start a business these days than it has ever been. And I think we need to kind of take that to heart. You know, it's pretty amazing to have so many free tools out there that allow us to get to people. We've just got to figure out how to use them properly.
Absolutely. And also a lot of those tools that help us are only $5 or $10 a month or whatever it is. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can get really free. I mean, and to contextualize that, I mean, Google Hangouts on Air. We were about to start a huge project that would have cost us 30 grand a month. But Hangouts on Air provides us that solution for free. You know, so it's saving us 120 grand a month, which is a huge saving. And it just works. It works. So yeah,
there is so much out there.
It is exciting.
I think it's a great time to be alive, and a great time to start a business. Just remember the common sense that your great granddaddy had, and you'll be okay.
Yes, and don't forget who your customer is. Absolutely. Andy Hadfield, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate those wisdoms and insights that you've shared with us, and take care.
Absolute pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
And listen, good luck on the real-time wine, hey?
Cool. If anyone's interested, launch.realtimewine.com or just realtimewine.com. Go have a look.
Fantastic. I'll put that link in the show notes for you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Cheers, Andy.